Section 1. What if I told you that one man, appointed just weeks ago, could decide the financial future of an entire nation? A single policy choice from his desk could make the difference between economic recovery and financial collapse. Ethiopia has a new central bank chief, and with that appointment, the country stands at a crossroads between stability and crisis, between hope and hardship. On paper, the move looks like progress, a fresh leader, a promise of reform, a renewed vision for monetary policy. But beneath the headlines lies a deeper tension, one that could quietly crash the economy if not handled with precision. Because central banks aren't just about printing money or setting interest rates. They are the heart that pumps life, or drains it, from an entire economic system. And Ethiopia's heart has been under enormous strain. Inflation above 30%, a currency losing value by the week, and debt payments piling higher than exports can sustain. The decisions made in the next few months won't just shape the numbers, they'll shape lives, prices, jobs, and hope itself. In today's video, we'll explore how Ethiopia's new central bank chief could, unintentionally, crash the economy, and what history tells us about how fragile monetary power can be. We'll look at who this new leader is, what pressures he faces, the dangerous trade-offs ahead, and what it all means for millions of ordinary citizens. Because the story of one man's policies is really the story of a nation standing on the edge of economic transformation or collapse. His name is Eyob Tekalign. Until recently, he was Ethiopia's state minister of finance, a man praised for his intellect, discipline, and loyalty to the reform agenda of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He's now the governor of the National Bank of Ethiopia, the institution responsible for controlling the nation's money, credit, and financial stability. To most Ethiopians, Eyob is still a new face, not a fiery politician, but a quiet technocrat. He's known for his sharp economic mind, his calm demeanor, and his ability to navigate the inner circles of government. But inside the world of finance, this appointment raised both hope and fear. Hope because Eyob represents a younger generation of policymakers, educated, reform-minded, and fluent in the language of international finance. Fear because he's inheriting an economy that's dangerously unbalanced, where one wrong move could trigger a chain reaction across markets, banks, and households. When Eyob took the job, he wasn't stepping into a clean office with a fresh balance sheet. He walked into a room full of economic fires, inflation still burning hot, foreign reserves drying up, and a national currency that has lost almost 70% of its value over the last few years. The Ethiopian birr, once a proud symbol of national strength, now struggles against the US dollar like a swimmer caught in a riptide. The more the government prints to cover its deficits, the weaker the birr becomes. And the weaker the birr becomes, the more everything, from bread to fuel, costs ordinary people. Now imagine being Eyob Tekalign in that situation. The people want relief from rising prices. Businesses want a stable currency. International lenders want repayment, and the government wants growth. Balancing all of that is like walking on a tightrope over a pit of fire, and the world is watching every step he takes. In his first speeches as governor, Eyob spoke about modernizing the banking system, controlling inflation, and restoring trust in the central bank. Noble goals, yes, but behind those words lies a brutal reality. The tools he has to fix the economy are the same tools that could destroy it. A small change in interest rates, a slight shift in currency policy, or a deal with the wrong lender could be enough to send shockwaves through Ethiopia's fragile financial system. And the danger is that in his effort to prove strength, he might make the very decisions that weaken the economy. Ethiopia's fragile economic situation. To understand the danger Ethiopia faces today, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. For years, Ethiopia was seen as one of Africa's fastest-growing economies. New buildings rose over Addis Ababa, highways connected once isolated regions, and ambitious projects like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam promised a future of energy independence and national pride. But behind that progress was a growing imbalance, an economy expanding on borrowed money. Billions in loans flowed from foreign governments and international lenders. The dream was that growth would pay for itself. But instead of producing enough exports to repay those debts, Ethiopia's income streams began to dry up. Then came conflict, global shocks, and a weakening birr. Each one hit the economy like a wave, eroding whatever stability was left. Today, the reality is painful. Inflation has climbed above 30%, with food prices rising even faster. Ordinary citizens watch the price of basic goods double or triple within a year. Savings lose value the longer they sit in the bank, and salaries that once covered a month's expenses now barely last 2 weeks. For families, it feels like chasing a moving target. Every time they think they've caught up, prices run ahead again. But inflation is just one part of the crisis. The government's foreign reserves, the money it uses for imports, are dangerously low. Ethiopia depends heavily on goods from abroad: fuel, medicine, machinery, even wheat. When the reserves shrink, importing these essentials becomes harder, and the shortage pushes prices even higher.
Then there's the debt problem. Ethiopia owes billions of dollars to international lenders. Each repayment drains more of the country's limited foreign currency, creating a vicious cycle where the birr weakens, debt grows, and confidence collapses. And while all this happens, local banks are under immense pressure. People are withdrawing money faster than it comes in, businesses can't access enough credit, and trust in the financial system is slowly eroding. In economics, trust is everything. Once people stop believing their money will hold value, the entire system starts to shake. This is the situation Eyob Tekalign has inherited. A central bank that's expected to stabilize a currency, control inflation, support growth, and repay foreign debt, all at the same time. It's like being asked to put out a fire while someone keeps pouring gasoline over it. And here's where the real risk lies. To fix this crisis, the new governor must make hard choices, choices that will hurt in the short term, but may save the economy in the long run. But if those choices are made too aggressively or without the right timing, they could crash the system entirely. The power of a central bank lies in decisions that seem invisible: interest rates, money supply, exchange controls. But in a fragile economy, those invisible levers can have very visible consequences. For Eyob Tekalign, the challenge now is simple in theory, but impossible in practice. How do you fight inflation without choking growth? One option is to raise interest rates, make borrowing more expensive so people spend less and prices fall. But in Ethiopia, that move could crush small businesses already struggling to stay alive. Factories running on borrowed money would slow down or shut down completely. Unemployment would rise, growth would stall. Another path is to let the birr devalue further, allowing the exchange rate to reflect reality. That could make exports more competitive and attract remittances, but it would also make imports even more expensive, driving inflation to new highs and punishing the poor. A third option is printing money to cover government deficits, the path many developing nations have taken before. It provides temporary relief, but at a terrible cost. More money chasing the same goods means higher prices. People start losing faith in the currency, and that's how inflation turns into hyperinflation. Every route Eyob takes leads to a wall. If he raises rates, growth dies. If he prints more, inflation explodes. If he tries to fix the birr, foreign reserves vanish. He's not playing a game of economics anymore. He's performing surgery on a living system, where one wrong incision could stop the heartbeat entirely. Section 5. How monetary policy could backfire. Central banks are supposed to be independent, free from political influence. But in Ethiopia, that independence has always been fragile. The government still relies on the national bank to fund its deficits, manage its debts, and stabilize the markets. This dependence creates a dangerous trap, because if Eyob bows to political pressure, printing more money to finance spending, the inflation crisis could spiral beyond control. The more money that's printed, the weaker the birr becomes. And when people start converting their birr into dollars or gold, the system begins to fracture. Banks face liquidity shortages, Imports slow down, and eventually, shelves start to empty. This is how economies fall, not in a single day, but through a series of necessary decisions that seemed harmless at first. We've seen this pattern before. Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, all tried to solve short-term crises with printed money and price controls. All ended up collapsing under the weight of inflation, debt, and lost confidence. The lesson is simple, but hard to follow. You cannot print your way out of an economic fire. You can only reform your way out. If Ethiopia repeats the same mistakes, if it prints more, borrows more, and delays structural reform, the crash won't come with an explosion. It will come quietly, through rising prices, falling confidence, and a slow erosion of purchasing power that leaves people poorer every day. Section 6. Lessons from other countries. History is full of countries that stood where Ethiopia stands today, caught between reform and ruin. In Ghana, the central bank printed money to cover government deficits. Inflation soared, and the local currency lost 90% of its value. It took painful reforms and IMF support to stabilize the economy again. In Egypt, the government devalued its currency multiple times. While it attracted foreign investment briefly, it also triggered massive inflation that left citizens struggling to afford basic goods. In Argentina, politicians interfered with the central bank's independence for decades. Every time they printed to cover spending, inflation roared back stronger. And today, the Argentine peso is worth less than a US cent. Ethiopia now faces the same choice, to learn from history or to repeat it. The decisions Eyob Tekalign makes in the next 12 months will determine which side of history Ethiopia lands on. He can choose to restore confidence by tightening spending, allowing market reforms, and letting the currency find its true value. Or he can choose short-term political comfort, printing money to ease the pain today, only to make tomorrow unbearable. Every central bank governor faces this test. Most fail, because saving an economy means being unpopular. It means saying no when everyone wants yes. It means letting the short-term pain happen so that long-term stability can return.
Section 7. What this means for ordinary Ethiopians. Economic collapse isn't just about numbers. It's about people. When inflation rises, the first to suffer are the poorest, families whose income doesn't stretch as far as it used to. The price of teff, cooking oil, and transport doubles. Savings lose value overnight, and dreams that once felt within reach, a small shop, a new home, a better school for their children, suddenly fade away. For the middle class, the pain is different. Loans become impossible to repay, businesses slow down, and the sense of stability that took years to build starts to crumble. In times like these, trust becomes the most valuable currency. If people believe the government and the central bank can control the storm, they hold on. But if that trust breaks, panic sets in, and no policy can stop it. That's the danger Eyob Tekalign faces today. His challenge is not only to fix the numbers, but to rebuild faith. Faith in the beer, faith in the banks, and faith that tomorrow will be better than today. Because an economy runs not just on money, but on belief. Section 8. Final reflection and closing message. In the end, the story of Ethiopia's economy is not just about one man or one institution. It's about a nation standing on the edge of transformation, where every decision counts and every mistake carries weight. Eyob Tekalign may not intend to crash the economy. In fact, he may truly believe he's saving it. But as history has shown us, good intentions are not enough when faced with the brutal logic of economics. The central bank can guide the economy, but it cannot defy its laws. Print too much, and money loses meaning. Borrow too much, and debt becomes destiny. Control too tightly, and markets suffocate. But reform with courage, and the nation can rise again. For Ethiopia, this is a defining moment.
The next chapter will be written not in headlines, but in households, in how much bread costs, how many jobs are created, and how much hope remains in the hearts of ordinary people. And as the world watches, one truth stands clear. If Ethiopia is to survive this storm, it must learn the lesson every great economy has learned before, that real stability is not built on control or printing presses, but on trust, discipline, and time. Because the power to crash an economy lies in one hand, but the power to save it lies in all of us.